Yes, people, well, this is reality to the world. So I am just passing through France for a bit, but right now we are in Paris and I have my tour guide here with me and she's gonna give us some of the history, some of the religious war that take place here in Paris. But if you do your research, you're gonna see, France created a lot of atrocities on so many African countries. It's there, just do your research, you can find it, you see? So, big up yourself, people at home and abroad, near and far. This is reality to the world. Just enjoy the views, enjoy the sceneries while I'm just passing through Paris. And don't forget, hit that notification bell so you're gonna get videos when I upload it.
French Wars of Religion were a series of civil wars between French Catholics and Protestants called Huguenots from 1562 to 1598. Between 2 and 4 million people died from violence, famine, or disease directly caused by the conflict, and it severely damaged the power of the French monarchy. One of its most notorious episodes was the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in 1572. The fighting ended with a compromise in 1598 when Henry of Navarre, who had converted to Catholicism in 1593, was proclaimed King Henry IV of France and issued the Edict of Nantes, which granted substantial rights and freedoms to the Huguenots. However, Catholics continued to disapprove of Protestants and of Henry, and his assassination in 1610 triggered a fresh round of Huguenot rebellions in the 1620s. Tensions between the two religions had been building since the 1530s, exacerbating existing regional divisions. The death of Henry II of France in July 1559 initiated a prolonged struggle for power between his widow, Catherine de' Medici, and powerful nobles. These included a fervently Catholic faction led by the Guise and Montmorency families, and Protestants headed by the House of Condé and Jean d'Albret. Both sides received assistance from external powers, with Spain and Savoy supporting the Catholics, and England and the Dutch Republic backing the Protestants. Moderates, also known as politiques, hoped to maintain order by centralizing power and making concessions to Huguenots, rather than the policies of repression pursued by Henry II and his father Francis I. They were initially supported by Catherine de' Medici, whose January 1562 Edict of Saint-Germain was strongly opposed by the Guise faction and led to an outbreak of widespread fighting in March. She later hardened her stance and backed the 1572 St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in Paris, which resulted in Catholic mobs killing between 5,000 and 30,000 Protestants throughout France. The wars threatened the authority of the monarchy, and the last Valois kings, Catherine's 3 sons Francis II, Charles IX, and Henry III. Their Bourbon successor Henry IV responded by creating a strong central state and extending toleration to Huguenots. The latter policy would last until 1685, when Henry's grandson Louis XIV revoked the Edict of Nantes. Along with French Wars of Religion and Huguenot Wars, the wars have also been variously described as the 8 Wars of Religion, or simply the Wars of Religion, only within France. The exact number of wars and their respective dates are subject to continued debate by historians. Some assert that the Edict of Nantes, 3rd of April 1598, and the Peace of Vervins, 2nd of May 1598, concluded the wars, while the ensuing 1620s Huguenot rebellions lead others to believe the Peace of Alais in 1629 is the actual conclusion. However, the agreed-upon beginning of the wars is the Massacre of Wassy in 1562, and the Edict of Nantes at least ended this series of conflicts. During this time, complex diplomatic negotiations and agreements of peace were followed by renewed conflict and power struggles. American military historians Keyser, Drass, and Brustein, 1994, maintained the following divisions, periodizations, and locations. Massacre of Vassy, 1562, Western France, First War of Religion, 1562 to 63, Western and Southwestern France. Second War of Religion, 1567 to 68, Western and Southwestern France. Third War of Religion, 1568 to 70, Western and Southwestern France. St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, 1572, Northeastern France. Fourth War of Religion, 1572-73, Western and Southwestern France. Fifth War of Religion, 1575-76, Western and Southwestern France. Sixth War of Religion, 1576-77, Western and Southwestern France. Seventh War of Religion, 1580, Western and Southwestern France. Eighth War of Religion, 1585-89, Western and Southwestern France. Ninth War of Religion, 1589-98, Western and Southwestern. At War of the Three Henries was another name for the Eighth War of Religion, with Cohn adding Lovers' War as another name for the Seventh War. In her Michel de Montaigne biography, 2014, Elizabeth Guild concurred with this chronology as well, except for dating the Seventh War of Religion to 1579 to 1580 rather than just 1580. Holt, 2005, asserted a rather different periodization from 1562 to 1629, writing of civil wars rather than wars of religion, dating the Sixth War to March-September 1577, and dating the Eighth War from June 1584, death of Anjou, to April 1598, Edict of Nantes. Finally, although he didn't put a number on it, Holt regarded the 1610 to 1629 period as the last war of religion. Renaissance humanism began during the 14th century in Italy and arrived in France in the early 16th, coinciding with the rise of Protestantism in France. The movement emphasized the importance of ad fontes, or study of original sources, and initially focused on the reconstruction of secular Greek and Latin texts. It later expanded into the reading, study, and translation of works by the Church Fathers and the New Testament, with a view to religious renewal and reform. Humanist scholars argued interpretation of the Bible required an ability to read the New Testament and Old Testaments in the original Greek and Hebrew, rather than relying on the 4th century Latin translation known as the Vulgate Bible. In 1495, the Venetian Aldus Manutius began using the newly invented printing press to produce small, inexpensive, pocket editions of Greek, Latin, and vernacular literature, making knowledge in all disciplines available for the first time to a wide audience. Cheap pamphlets and broadsides, theological and religious ideas to be disseminated at an unprecedented pace. In 1519, John Froben published a collection of works by Martin Luther and noted in his correspondence that 600 copies were being shipped to France and Spain and sold in Paris. 16th century religious geopolitics on a map of modern France. Huguenot controlled, contested Catholic controlled. In 1521, a group of reformers, including Jacques Lefebvre and Guillaume Brissonnet, recently appointed Bishop of Meaux, formed the Circle of Meaux, aiming to improve the quality of preaching and religious life in general. They were joined by François Vadable, an expert in Hebrew, 16, along with Guillaume Boudet, a classicist and royal librarian. Lefebvre's fivefold Psalter and his commentary on the Epistle to the Romans emphasized the literal interpretation of the Bible and the centrality of Jesus Christ, 15. Many of the tenets behind Lutheranism first appeared in Luther's lectures, which in turn contained many of the ideas expressed in the works of Lefebvre. Other members of the circle included Marguerite de Navarre, sister of Francis I and mother of Jean d'Albret, as well as Guillaume Farel, who was exiled to Geneva in 1530 due to his reformist views and persuaded John Calvin to join him there, 19. Both men were banished from Geneva in 1538 for opposing what they viewed as government interference with religious affairs. Although the two fell out over the nature of the Eucharist, Calvin's return to Geneva in 1541 allowed him to forge the doctrine of Calvinism. A key driver behind the Reform movement was corruption among the clergy, which Luther and others attacked and sought to change. Such criticisms were not new, but the printing press allowed them to be widely shared, such as the Heptameron by Marguerite, a collection of stories about clerical immorality. Another complaint was the reduction of salvation to a business scheme based on the sale of indulgences, which added to general unrest and increased the popularity of works such as Farel's translation of the Lord's Prayer, the true and perfect prayer. This focused on sola fide, or the idea salvation was a free gift from God, emphasized the importance of understanding in prayer, and criticized the clergy for hampering the growth of true faith. The Italian revival of classical learning appealed to Francis I, 1494 to 1547, who set up royal professorships in Paris to better understand ancient literature. However, this did not extend to religion, especially after the 1516 Concordat of Bologna, when Pope Leo X increased royal control of the Gallican Church, allowing Francis to nominate French clergy and levy taxes on church property. Unlike Germany, the French nobility also generally supported the status quo and existing policies. Despite his personal opposition, Francis tolerated Martin Luther's ideas when they entered France in the late 1520s, largely because the definition of Catholic orthodoxy was unclear, making it hard to determine precisely what was or was not heresy. He tried to steer a middle course in the developing religious schism, but in January 1535, Catholic authorities made a definitive ruling by classifying Lutherans as heretical Zwinglians. Calvin, originally from Noyon in Picardy, went into exile in 1535 to escape persecution and settled in Basel, where he published the Institutes of the Christian Religion in 1538. This work contained the key principles of Calvinism, which became immensely popular in France and other European countries. Paris suffered greatly during the wars of religion of the 16th century. A third of the Parisians fled, many houses were destroyed, and the grand projects of the Louvre, the Hôtel de Ville, and the Tuileries Palace were unfinished. Henry IV took away the independence of the city government and ruled Paris directly through royal officers. He relaunched the building projects and built a new wing of the Louvre along the Seine, the Galerie du Bordelot, which connected the old Louvre with the new Tuileries Palace. The project of making the Louvre into a single great palace continued for the next 300 years. Henry IV's building projects for Paris were managed by a Protestant, the Duke of Sully, his forceful superintendent of buildings and Minister of Finances, who was named Grand Master of Artillery in 1599. Henry IV recommenced the construction of the Pont Neuf, started by Henry III in 1578, but left unfinished during the Wars of Religion. It was finished between 1600 and 1607. It was the first Paris bridge built without houses. Instead, it was uncovered and equipped with sidewalks. Near the bridge, he built La Samaritaine, 1602 to 1608, a large pumping station which provided drinking water as well as water for the gardens of the Louvre and the Tuileries. To the south of the vacant site of the former royal residence of Henry II, the Hôtel des Tournelles, he built an elegant new residential square surrounded by brick houses and an arcade. It was built between 1605 and 1612 and named the Place Royale. In 1800, it was renamed the Place des Vosges. In 1607, Henry began work on a new residential triangle, the Place Dauphine, lined by 32 brick and stone houses at the western end of the Ile de la Cité. It was his final project for the city of Paris. Henry IV was assassinated on 14th of May 1610 by Francois Ravaillac, a Catholic fanatic. 4 years later, a bronze equestrian statue of the murdered king was erected on the Pont Neuf that faced the Place Dauphine. Henry IV's widow, Marie de Medici, decided to build her own residence, the Luxembourg Palace, 1615 to 1630, modeled after the Pitti Palace in her native Florence. In the Italian gardens of her palace, she commissioned a Florentine fountain maker, Tommaso Francini, to create the Medici fountain. Water was scarce in the left bank, one reason it had grown more slowly than the right bank. To provide water for her gardens and fountains, Marie de Medici had the old Roman aqueduct from Rungis reconstructed. In 1616, she also created the Cours la Reine west of the Tuileries Gardens along the Seine. It was another reminder of Florence, a long promenade lined with 1,800 elm trees. Louis III continued the Louvre project begun by Henry IV by creating the harmonious Cour Carrée, or square courtyard, in the heart of the Louvre. His chief minister, the Cardinal de Richelieu, added another important building in the center of Paris. In 1624, he started construction of a grand new residence for himself, the Palais Cardinal, now known as the Palais Royal. He began by buying several large mansions located on the Rue Saint-Honoré, next to the then still existing wall of Charles V, the first Hôtel de Rambouillet and adjacent Hôtel d'Armagnac.
Plate says DY136KM. So, like we in English, I would say Twingo.
Yeah, it's a Twingo.
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 Oh. Okay, let me see this name. It's P-O-N-T, Pont Marie.
Exactement.
Same thing?
Pont Marie.
So therefore, I know French.
I want something sad. Ah, moi, il y avait le Franprix juste à côté. Moi, t'es pas parti. En plus, là, on se dirige vers l'aéroport. Tout va être cher là-bas.
Pont Marie. Subscribe to Reality
to the one.